Shoot your arrows! Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. Robert Wood, touchdown! LA! Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge. And Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett in stride! Wow!
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Leto got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did!
Racing down the sideline is Akeem Talib. Gurley for MVP! Touchdown LA!
Picked off by John Johnson.
Well, Dante Fowler, who is able to get to breathe. Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl! LA will play for the Lombardi!
Welcome back, guys. Another draft season podcast. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me is Alexis Kraft. And, of course, we have two podcast guests. We, of course, have Derrek Thomas, Baylor cornerback. He actually hails from the 518, which is my neck of the woods, so it was awesome to have him on. And we're also bringing on Donnie Lewis, cornerback, Tulane. So it's two cornerbacks on the show. Hope you guys enjoy, and here's the podcast. All right, guys, joining us on the podcast, Baylor cornerback Derrek Thomas. How's it going, man? Thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, how you doing? I appreciate you guys for having me on. I'm doing all right.
Awesome. Yeah, we're so excited to get to talk to you. And to start it off, I just want to kind of hear about how you started playing football and how old you were when you first started playing.
I started playing probably around the age of probably 4 or 5, in Rensselaer, New York. Pop Warner, started off flag football, things like that, and just, gradually work your way up to pads and, high school and things like that. So I started young. I started at about 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, of course. And, you actually, you grew up in upstate New York, and that's where I'm from. So, I thought that was really cool. I reached out, and you were, so open to have, go on a 518ers podcast. But I just got to get your thoughts because, I still live here. What were your thoughts, growing up and living in upstate New York?
Let me see. Let me try to word this right. I didn't really have any. I didn't really know what else to think. Really, that was where I was from. That's what I know. That's what I knew at the time. I was just a kid growing up in New York. That's how I saw it. I saw it as being a East Coast guy. Playing football, playing basketball. Always knew that I wanted to, go off to college, academically and athletically. Always knew about other places. Always knew that I wanted to travel and, go all over the place. But just growing up, I was just, a kid from New York. Really, that's how I thought about it.
Yeah, and you were a New York State Hall of Fame scholar athlete. What did that mean to you, getting an accolade like that?
I think at the time, I didn't really understand. While in high school and things like that, you kind of get awards and you don't see things until, later on in life and, looking back and, retrospect, getting something like that and having the coach that I had, was something that means a lot to me. Being from New York, basketball is king. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So playing football and, gaining certain awards and things like that, it meant a lot to me. And then to be able to share that with, my coach at the time, my head coach at the time, it meant a lot. So looking back, it means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you went from playing both wide receiver and cornerback to mainly playing wide receiver at prep school. What was it like deciding between, those positions?
So at prep, so when I went to prep school, I played receiver. In high school, I played both sides of the ball. In high school, I was a receiver, like most guys that are tall and things like that. What you do is you just put them at receiver. You can run and catch. That's what you do. I played corner because, at the time, we only had about 20-some guys on the team, so if you played, you had to know how to play both sides of the ball. But going into prep school, I was specifically a receiver. It wasn't until, years later down the line where I kind of went into the path of becoming a corner and things like that, which is funny because even in high school, I wanted to be a corner in high school, but everybody was kind of like, well, you're tall and you're fast. And back then it was, well, if you're tall and fast, you got to be a receiver. So it's funny how things kind of work out, and how things kind of come full circle. But in the beginning, I always actually wanted to be a corner.
Yeah. And, you obviously, we talked a little bit about your time in high school. And then when it came to playing college, you actually originally chose to be a Temple Owl, but then decommitted. So what's kind of the story behind that?
Well, so what happened was originally I went to Milford because I was gonna go to Penn State. That's the reason I went there. At the time, the coach who was recruiting me sent me to Milford and advised me to go to Milford, to get certain things in place. Long story short, it didn't happen for whatever reasons. It just, fell through, and I ended up not going, to Penn State. So what happened was I ended up signing a scholarship for Temple. Now, how that came along was while we were up at the prep school, we had this kind of pro day-ish thing that we did where a bunch of schools would come down from all over. We had schools from everywhere would come and, evaluate us. So the coach at the time, Coach Matt Rule, was actually a Penn State alum, and he was on, national championship teams and some of the best, Penn State University teams. So it was kind of funny how it all came about, where it was like this kid who originally we thought was going to go to Penn State didn't, but now he gets recruited by this Penn State alum in PA, to go to a school that at the time wasn't really known. And, we went to Temple and we ended up turning that program around, doing what we did. And when we beat Penn State, I think it was the first time in like 70-some years. So it's just crazy. It's crazy how things work out and how, things kind of come about.
Yeah, of course. And you played, 6 games your freshman year, ended up redshirting your sophomore year. What was that whole experience like?
Oh, it was different. It was definitely different for me. I was a true freshman because at the time, people saw talent, people saw, what I could do. Just being young, I didn't take advantage of it, when I was young. I don't want to say because it was a lot. I think for me, it was more just, maturity and things like that, just being a young guy, not really understanding the situation, not really understanding the opportunity. So for me, like I said, I came in as a true freshman with, a lot on my shoulders and a lot of expectation. So those first 2 years were really just me learning how to grow up, So for me, that's really what it was. It was just the difficult thing about it was learning how to grow up, get out of the high school mindset, get out of, what you're comfortable with, and just, kind of beginning to grow as a man and as an athlete.
Yeah, and then we kind of touched on this a bit earlier, but in 2016, it was your redshirt sophomore season, and that's when you switched from wide receiver to cornerback exclusively. So what was the deciding factor that time to permanently switch to cornerback?
It was just the overall decision, made by myself, made by the coaches. The first 2 years, like I said, our receiver they weren't going, as well as we would have hoped and things like that. And at the time, it was a couple of guys that were, big, in the NFL or whatever, playing corner, it wasn't a lot. But for me, my coaches knew that I had played it in the past, and they believed that I was, talented enough and athletic enough to make the move, because corner is extremely specialized. You can't, a lot of guys can't just pick up and play corner. Corner is something that it takes years and years to develop. So for me, it was kind of like, it was just a lot of faith, was put into me. A lot of faith was put into my coach, where it was like, all right, well, let's just do it, teach them right. And, everything kind of worked out.
Yeah, it certainly did. And, you played one of your coaches was Matt Rule, a guy that is talked about as a future NFL head coach. He goes to Baylor. When it comes to, transfer, you go to Baylor. What was that whole process like? And I'm not going to ask you the obvious question because I'm sure, him being there had something to do with you transferring there.
For me, just, being around people and being around a system that was comfortable, that was the main reason, being around coaches and things like that. But it was an easy transition. Like I said prior, I was always a kid who I know where I'm from, and I take pride in where I'm from, but I always want to go somewhere new. I always wanted to be in new places. So Texas for me was kind of like, growing up on the East Coast, you play football. If you play football, Florida, Texas, California. That's just kind of what we're, coming up. That's what we're taught as. These are the meccas of football. So I get the chance to go play college football, in the state of Texas. I'm not turning that down. So the transition for me, it wasn't a hard one. In terms of football, it wasn't a hard one in terms of just the environment. The environment is very different than, the Northeast, of course, but I enjoyed it. The people are different, but I enjoyed it because, I feel like I'm a personable individual. I like getting to know people. I like getting to know new people. I like getting to know new environments. So for me, I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And, Jake mentioned Coach Rule. What was it like to be a player, for him, because he's someone who's kind of constantly talked about as a future NFL head coach and someone who's very popular and liked a lot. So what was it like to play for him?
It was a very pro-like system. And when I say that, I mean, he treats you like a pro. He teaches you how to be a pro. And that's something that's big in college football. And it's not, not just him, but that entire staff, all the coaches under him, all the position coaches, everybody in the building. It's a culture of, when you go to college, a lot of people say, we're going to turn this young boy into a man. That really doesn't happen. But playing under him and playing under my position coach and playing just in that system, you really are taught on not only from the football aspect, how to be a great football player and how to be a great pro and things like this, but you learn how to be a man. You learn all the things off the field. You learn all the things academically, that you're supposed to know. So playing for him, you really begin to mold yourself and you see yourself and guys around you become different, if I will, on and off the field. So, playing for him and playing for that staff and just playing for, a culture like that, it's a great place to be because it allows you to be yourself. You're going to have fun, but at the same time, you're going to learn responsibility. At the same time, you're going to learn how to be accountable. And, overall, it's really just teaching you and molding you to be a great overall person, not only athletically, but it's teaching you how to be a man.
Oh, absolutely, of course. Through your college career, and you played a ton of games, and you went through 2 different colleges. What would you say is your best play, maybe a memory, or a game that you played in?
Best play? Oh, that's hard. I couldn't even tell you that. That's hard. My best memory? That's hard too, to be honest with you. I could say that my best feeling, like the best feeling I've ever had, because it's hard for me just to pick, the best play or, but my best the best feeling memory, I guess, if I would, was when we won the championship at Temple. The feeling of just winning, it all, winning the conference championship and overcoming everything that we overcame and just kind of seeing all the confetti everywhere and seeing literally like absolute joy on people's faces. Like, you got to think, this is college football where at times guys are really stern and, you got to be tough and all of these things. And you see these grown men, everybody from the ages of 18 to 23 and, coaches and everybody like literally are like children, like you literally see the pure enjoyment. So for me, that moment, that feeling of man, we just won this whole thing. And you know, like I just said, just the confetti everywhere and everybody just being happy. And you can feel just the absolute like childhood like joy, almost as if like before football becomes a business and before things get a little more serious, kind of like when you're playing as a kid, you're just out there playing, having fun. That I got that feeling, and that is probably, you know, to this point, the greatest feeling I've had.
Of course. Yeah, I can only imagine. I'm sure it's just an incredible feeling that, you know, as you mentioned, you'll never forget. And, you know, in college, you went up against a lot of great talent. You played a lot against a lot of great teams and a lot of great players. It's probably hard to pick, but if you could pick one guy that stood out to you, you know, the toughest player that you went up against in college, who would that be?
That's hard too, because like you said, I remember we went up against Cortland Sutton, we went up against Zay Jones. This year in the Big 12, we got, you know, a guy every week.
I can only imagine.
And you know, they're all talented and things like that. But the toughest, to be honest, I really can't even think about that. You know, like it's really hard to think about that on the spot because guys are all so different and they all got different talents, different skills. And I just, you know, not trying to sound, you know, but I can't think of anybody who's just outright like, oh my gosh, just like, you know, a terror. That's hard. I'm sorry. I can't even answer that. That's hard. I'm sorry.
No worries. That's what happens when you play in the Big 12.
You put me on the spot with that one.
That's what happens when you play in the Big 12, man. You know, talk about Hakeem Butler and, you know, Marquise Brown and CeeDee Lamb. I mean, those are just three guys that just came to mind. And, you know, that's not even factoring the Texas Tech kid, you know, Antoine Wesley. And, you know, I mean, I'm sure you didn't, you know, go up against him. You know, he wasn't a receiver, but I mean, Puka Williams of my Kansas Jayhawks is also up there.
The running back. Oh my God, yeah, like he was nasty too. Yeah, so it's hard. You know, on the spot, it's just hard because, like I said, nobody to me is just like jumping like, oh my gosh, like that game right there was just a terror. But like I said, everybody, you know, respectively has their own skill, has their talents, but yeah, on the spot, that's a hard one. I'd have to really sit down and think to myself, you know, in a football standpoint, like which game was the hardest. So
yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, you know, the thing is with us, Derrek, is that, you know, we're going to ask you questions that you probably haven't been asked before, but we aren't going to ask you if you're a cat or a dog, like, you know, what they ask you at the combine. With that being said, I do want to ask you about the combine because I thought it was really cool after seeing the thing. I think it was YNN, you know, the local news here. You know, they did a piece on you, and you know, right after I saw that, then I see you at the combine. I'm like, whoa, you know, I thought that was really cool. Yeah, obviously for yourself, what was that experience like? And then kind of add on to that, what was your pro day like?
It was, you know, just once in a lifetime. You know, one thing that we all kind of talked about, you know, just the guys in general. You know, you got guys from all over, from every type of school and every, you know, different conferences. But one thing we all kind of talked about was, man, you just have to enjoy it and you have to be appreciative of the moment because I think for the corners, there was, 35 corners, you know? And it's like, man, you're telling me 35 corners out of all Division 1, 2, and 3 get invited to this thing. You know what I mean? It's a total of 300 some odd players. Like, you have to, you know, you just have to be appreciative of it. So for me, I was just appreciative of the moment. You know, I went down there and, you know, I did what I had to do, you know, on the field and off the field. It was about 4 days, you know, 4 very tedious days of just rigorous, you know, testing of, you know, psychological things and interviews and things of that nature. But like I said, at the end of the day, when you think about it in retrospect, man, there's 35 of us here, you know, and I don't know how many people play college football. You know, I don't know the numbers of how many, you know, eligible guys came out, but you have to be appreciative, you know, whether it's good or bad. And for the pro day, you know, same thing. It was a good day. We had a pro day today. Good day, came out, you know, did what I was supposed to do, had a really good day. So, just enjoying it day by day. Is it tedious? Yes, but that's what we signed up for, and that's what we enjoy. So overall, the combine and the pro days, just, really good events, really good experiences, and just taking it day by day.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that, they're both events that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. And, it certainly sounds like a cool experience and a unique experience to go through. And, just probably, as you mentioned, there wasn't a lot of people there. And it certainly says something about, your talent that you were. And, if there's any NFL player that comes to mind, if there's any player that you've modeled your game after, who would that be?
So for me, I always look at the bigger corners. Obviously I look at the Jalen Ramseys. I look at Xavier Rhodes. I look at Richard Sherman. You know what I mean? I just like I like bigger guys, bigger corners, obviously, because we hold the same type of body type. Patrick Peterson, of course. Just bigger guys with bigger frames that are athletic. When you're 6'3", 6'4", you're not supposed to be able to be super athletic traditionally. So for me, being able to see guys like that and, see myself and just kind of compare things and be able to model things after them, it's great for me. But for me, those are my guys for me. It's, like I said, Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Rhodes, Patrick Peterson, Richard Sherman. For me, those are the guys that I look at in terms of when you talk about, okay, who's most similar in terms of size and things like that. Those are guys I look at. Now, yeah, I look at everybody, because everybody has different things. Everybody is good at other things. But just in terms of people who I can say, okay, I look like that, those are the guys that, I model myself after.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It seems like you guys are kind of cut from the same cloth. I mean, you have your 5'7", scrappy nickel corners, but, you don't hear like a nickel corner come on here and say, yeah, I really look up to, Richard Sherman, a guy that was 6'3", like it's never anything like that. It's not a boundary corner. It's more, they look up to Casey Hayward or they look up to Nickel Ruby-Coleman, guys like that. So, I mean, that makes absolute sense. With that being said, I do want to ask you, what do you bring to the table that no other corner in this draft brings?
I bring a level of professionalism. Now, what does that mean when I say that? Every guy's going to say, oh, I'm going to be the best football player and things like that, which for me, I believe that hands down. I've only been playing this position for 2 years, and I got a whole lot to learn. But for me, I can only get better. And for me, I know what I'm going to be. For me, I believe the best. I believe I'm the best, and I believe I'm going to be the best. Athletically, I believe I'm the best athlete. Intellectually, I believe I'm the smartest football player. But for me, it's so much more than football. It's the things outside of the lines. It's the little details. Like I said prior, just being in the culture that I was in, I was taught on how to be a pro. I was taught, and, that means a lot more than just the football. It means on how do you represent yourself? How do you represent an organization? How do you represent other people? So for me, it's just the overall thing. And when I think of that, when I think of, okay, what does it mean to be an absolute pro? What does it mean to be somebody who's different? The one guy that I think of 100 out of 100 times is a guy like Larry Fitzgerald. Now, Larry Fitzgerald is a guy who on the field, he's gonna be the best on the field, but it's something about him off the field. He has a level of professionalism off the field that's his brand, that's his trademark, and people know him for that. People know him for, okay, yeah, on the football field, man, he's who he is, but it's something about him that's different off the field. There's something about how he carries himself. It's something about how he represents that organization, and for me, that's what I pride myself on becoming and being.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything you said was spot on. And would you say that, your professionalism is your biggest strength as a player, or is there something else? If you had to pick one part of your game, what would you say is your strongest tribute?
Are we talking about on the football field, like on the actual field?
Yeah.
Being just super athletic and being a guy who can match up with anybody, being a man-to-man corner. Be honest, in the Big 12, you got another guy every week. And my job in the Big 12 was, I didn't have the luxury of playing this side, playing that side. My job was who's the best receiver. Go get him. Take him out. Take him out the game. You know what I mean? Take him out the game plan. So for me, it's all right, because at the end of the day, that's all football is. That's all any sport is. You can have all the schemes and all the plays, but, man, it's one-on-one. And for me, I do a really good job. I wanted to say something else, but I forgot I was on the pod. I wanted to say something else, but I do a very good job at who's the guy. Okay, well, that's who I got, and that's who I'm going to take out this game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what would you say, is one area that you want to really improve on? Because you did mention, you've only been playing corner for 2 years and you have a lot to learn. So I'm interested to know what you're kind of keying in on.
I would just kind of say, so I've always said point of attack. And when I say that, I mean, just kind of not seeing things faster, but just in terms of actual, okay, well, you recognize the play, you see the ball. Instead of letting somebody gain 6 yards, go stop them at 2, because you can. You know what I mean? Just little things like that. So just point of attack and the run game and stuff like that. Which, like I said, certain things I feel like just comes with time. So for me, that's it for me.
Right, and we like to ask fun questions, to everyone who comes on our show, just to kind of get into the mind of the player and just, lighten it up a little bit. But if you had to pick one quarterback in the entire NFL to pick off, who do you most want to pick off in the NFL?
Tom Brady. Tom Brady.
Every time.
Tom Brady.
Popular answer.
That is a no-brainer.
And then for, matching up against a receiver, which receiver would you most want to match up against?
Julio Jones.
That's another popular answer.
Julio Jones. I don't care who it is. Julio Jones, Odell, Mike Evans. I give Mike Evans. I don't know how many people say Mike Evans. Anybody, but yeah, Julio. Definitely Julio.
Yeah, and we are a Rams-based podcast, and we have to ask. We ask every guy who comes on the show, have you met or spoken with the Los Angeles Rams? And if so, have you scheduled a pre-draft visit or workout with them?
I don't recall. You talked to so many teams at the combine, to be honest with you. And do I have a pre-draft workout? I'm stumbling right now. A visit? No, not with them. I have a few with other teams, but not with them at the moment. At the time, I don't know if anything changes. But I'm sure, like I said, at the combine, everything is kind of so packed in, and you talk to so many people at different times, you kind of get lost in it all.
Yeah, definitely. That seems, a lot of guys, it seems like at the combine just had so many people talking to them, and it definitely is hard to keep track of. But, Jake and I are big fans of you. So, we hope that you'll end up a Los Angeles Ram. But even if you don't, we're going to be fans for life and watch your career and be cheering you on. And, last question, just in your own words, who is Derrek Thomas as a player and who is he as a person?
Derrek Thomas is a player, is a guy that loves the game of football. Derrek Thomas is a guy, as a player, somebody who wants to change the game of football and wants to be the best he can be and make others around him the best that they can be. Derrek Thomas is a football player who loves bringing enjoyment to those who watch him, to those who enjoy watching him play. And as a person, Derrek Thomas is somebody who's different. I've many times in my life been called deep and philosophical, and I think a different way. I like to call myself a lotus, because I have so many different things that I'm into. And I believe myself, Derrek Thomas is somebody who can make a whole lot of impact, not only on himself, but with the people around him. Derrek Thomas is somebody who can influence a lot of people, around this country and around this world at some point in his life. When, I don't know. But, as I continue to grow, I have a vision for myself. And the vision is something pretty deep and, pretty serious. So Yeah.
Well, that's just an awesome answer, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Like, I really appreciate it. And, it's really awesome, to see anybody from the 518 going out and doing things. And, you're doing big things. I know, Kevin Herter's on the Atlanta Hawks. So, we've had some guys come from this area. And, just keep it up, man. Let's stay in touch. Anytime you're around here, let me know. And, lunch is on me. But no, it's been a pleasure for sure. I just hope, stay healthy, obviously. And no matter where you get drafted, echoing what Alexis said, we'll be fans for life. So, really appreciate it, Derrek.
No, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day, just to have a conversation. So, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Derrek.
Not a problem.
All right, guys. Joining the podcast, we have Tulane cornerback Donnie Lewis. How's it going, man? Thanks so much for coming on.
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're so excited to talk to you. And just to start this thing off, we'll just start at the beginning. How old were you when you started playing football, and how did you get into the game?
Man, I started playing when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and my dad actually put me on like a 9 and 10-year-old team. So I started off playing up, and then the coach told me I was too small to play, so I just practiced with the older guys, and I would get roughed around that practice, and I always played up until I got into high school. So started about 7.
That's awesome, man. And growing up, did you have like a favorite player in the NFL?
Not really. As I got older, staying in Baton Rouge, I grew up a Skylar Green fan, actually. I used to watch LSU. I used to like Skylar Green. And then the older I got, I began to like Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. So that's a person that I would say I looked up to as I got older.
Absolutely. And, then you obviously played, and it came time for you to play in college. What was the main factor in you choosing to play at Tulane?
Actually, Tulane was, I would say, my biggest offer coming out of high school. I was really small. I was about 5'10", 5'11", 150 pounds. And Tulane had just gotten to the American Conference, which was a bigger conference. So I wanted to showcase my skills on a higher level against, I would say, higher talent athletes. I would say more skilled or a bigger level. And also the education at Tulane is one of a lifetime. So that played a big part.
Oh, yeah, of course. And you ended up redshirting your freshman year. What was that experience like for you?
When I first redshirted, I was kind of devastated. I thought I was ready, but like I said, I was small, so I took that and I learned the game. It gave me time to learn the game. I got bigger, stronger, faster. I got in the film room. I still got to practice and stuff with the scout team, so I just took that time to get better, to take my game to the next level. So when it was my time to play, I would be ready.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I know it's probably hard to choose, but I'm just curious, do you have a favorite moment or a favorite play or a favorite game from your collegiate career?
I would say this year we're playing SMU. I'm big on film. Like I said, my redshirt year, I took that time to learn the game. So I became a film freak. I would go up and watch film all the time. And the guy, James Porsche, I believe, he came in motion, and I knew it. I just knew the out route was coming into the boundary, so I jumped the out route, and it was a pick six. But it happened so fast, but it happened so slow. Like, the game moved so slow, jumping the route, I just knew it was coming, and I felt like at that moment I had stepped my game to the next level. I felt like all the hard work in the film room, all that had paid off. So I would say that pick six against SMU from this year was one of my favorite moments of my collegiate career.
Yeah, moving on, who would you say was the toughest player you went up against in college?
I would have to say Cortland Sutton from SMU last year. He's currently with the Denver Broncos, and Man, I don't know. He's 6'4", he runs like a 4.4, 4.3 on the field, game speed, big, strong guy, lengthy. He's a competitor. He can block. He's just all-around complete receiver, I would say. And he gave me I really enjoyed playing against him. It was a different look, the bigger guy who was fast. So that was one of the most challenging players I had to face in college.
Oh, definitely. And I forget who it was. Someone else mentioned him as well. As being one of the toughest guys they played against in college, an absolutely beast of a player for sure. And, you were ranked third nationally in passes defended last season at 15 and were named second team All-American Athletic Conference last season. I mean, what did it mean to you to have such a successful senior year?
It meant a lot to me. I came off my junior year learning a lot, and we had a legacy going at Tulane. We had Lorenzo Dawson went, and then Perry Nicholson went, and then it was my turn to step up. So I felt like I had some big shoes to fill. So I took that off season and I grinded, and I knew what I had to do. And just by making those plays and, like you said, being ranked that high in the nation, it meant a lot to me. I felt like I stepped my game up to a different level this past season, both tackling, playing multiple positions, and getting my hands on the ball. So stepped up and became a leader, and we got to turn the Tulane football program around, capping it off with a bowl win. So it definitely meant a lot to me, taking my game to that next level and seeing my game really evolve.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And kind of, moving forward, was there anyone that you modeled your game after?
I would say I like Xavier Rhodes and Jalen Ramsey. Those are two guys that I watch film. I study like how they play. Xavier Rhodes, one big physical corner. He knows his speed, and Jalen Ramsey just has that cockiness, that swagginess, but he's a playmaker at the end of the day. So, I look up to those two guys as well as the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, like I mentioned, just being that playmaker, flying around, getting to the ball. So, I would have to say it's a mixture of Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Rhodes, definitely.
Yeah, and those are definitely great guys to, model your game after for sure. Absolutely incredible players. But, what do you, in your opinion, bring to the table that no other cornerback in this draft brings?
My versatility, I play corner, I play nickel, I play safety, and I have my IQ is so high. I get praised about it all the time, but I definitely take pride in being a smart player, a player of the game, understanding route concepts, understanding that, just being in position to make plays, just understanding the game is just half of the battle for me. So, I'm very versatile, and you can line me up on the inside, you can line me up on the outside, you can line me up at the back at the safety. So I would say my versatility is something that I bring to the table. And I have film in all three places, as I mentioned, safety, corner, and nickel. So I would definitely say my versatility mixed with my covering skills and my physicality.
Yeah, it's definitely that's definitely a lot that you bring to the table. What's your what would you say is your biggest area of improvement? Something that you're really kind of honing in on that you feel you need to improve in.
I would have to say wrapping up. I'm a small guy, but I have the mind of a monster. I have a mind of a giant. So, I'm going to fly around. I'm going to bring energy, but sometimes I might run into players thinking that I'm 225 pounds when I'm only 190 pounds. So I would definitely bring the pop, but I would have to, start wrapping up more. So I can always improve on my tackling skills, which has gotten way better since my freshman year, I would say.
Yeah, and, we like to ask these kind of fun questions to guys who come on the show just to kind of see what you answer and just kind of get to know you a little bit. But which wide receiver do you most want to cover in the NFL? It's hard to pick one, but if you had to pick one.
Yeah, I would say DeAndre Hopkins. I would say he's the top guy right now. He's the best receiver in the league, and I like challenges. You know, I don't want to single him out over any others, but I would say he's the top dog in the league right now. Like he just came off a season where he didn't drop a ball, so you know he's definitely on the pedestal, and he has that swagger, that cockiness, as Jalen Ramsey mentioned, like I mentioned about him. So he's just a monster. You know, he's a little, I won't say a little guy, but he plays like a giant. You know, so he's definitely, I would say, the top receiver, and I like top dogs. I like to compete, get after it.
Yeah, that's definitely not a bad pick. He has turned himself into one of the best, if not the best receiver, like you said. With that being said, what do you, if you had to pick a quarterback to pick off in the NFL, who would you pick that you would want to pick off?
God, I would just Tom Brady, man. That's the GOAT. You know, you get a pick from Tom Brady, you can frame that ball. You can tell them, look, man, I just need to let me keep this. You know, I might even ask for a signature. So,
oh my God,
yeah, definitely. It's funny, we laugh because I think the only answer we've gotten is Tom Brady. I think there's been a few other, maybe one or two other guys that someone's mentioned, but 99% of the time when we ask that, it's Tom Brady, and rightfully so, because as you mentioned, that would be a huge accomplishment because he definitely, doesn't get picked off very often and is, probably the greatest quarterback of all time. So it's definitely a great pick. It's, seems to be the most universal answer, but, we are a Los Angeles Rams based podcast. And we ask every guy, who's come on the show, have you met with the Los Angeles Rams? And if so, have you scheduled a private visit or workout with them?
I've talked with the Rams at the East-West Shrine game, and I believe I had about, I believe I've talked to them like once or twice since the Shrine game, but I don't believe I have a visit with them, not to my knowledge.
Well, we certainly are excited to hear that you've talked to them because, Jake and I are big fans of you and would love to see you end up a Los Angeles Ram. But we'll, of course, be fans of you no matter where you go and follow your career and are confident that you're going to have a great one. But just to wrap it up, in your own words, who is Donnie Lewis as a player and who is he as a person?
I'll start off as a person. I'm a loving person. I have a great attitude, a great mindset. Everyone loves me. I'm the life of the party. People enjoy being around me. You don't hear too many negative things about me, if any negative things about me. As a person, I have a great heart, and that carries over to on the field. When I'm on the field, I'm a competitor. Coaches know I'm going to compete. I'm a player that's willing to do anything that will help the team win, whether that's playing gunner, whether that's playing long snapper, whether that's doing whatever it takes to contribute to the team. So I'm a we over me guy, I would say.
Yeah, we like that because like that whole we not me thing that has been established in the Rams locker room, that culture that Sean McVay kind of came up with, that definitely embodies that. How would you describe yourself as a player?
Competitor, as mentioned, fly around, get to the ball, willing to do whatever it takes. As I mentioned, I'm not a selfish player, very smart. I take football very seriously, but in a fun way, if that makes sense. Feel like I played all my life, so at this point, it's great to have fun with it. It's always business, but it's ways you go about business. It's time for fun. It's a time for seriousness. But I feel more relaxed when I'm flying around having fun. And whenever you're having fun, I feel like that's when you make the most plays. So I'm an energetic guy. I like to fly around. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we just want to thank you so much, Donnie, for coming on the show. It means a lot to us. And we know you've been really busy as the draft approaches and you've got a lot going on. But just thank you for taking time out of your night to talk to us. And, I know I can speak for Jake on this as well, but we'll be fans for life. We'll be following you and seeing what you do.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely, Donnie. Let's keep in touch, man.
All right. You guys have a good night.